Okay, we're about to begin day three. Can you go over the first day and the second day? Just a quick recap so we can just get it back in line.
Alright, let's jog your memory. Day 1 was basically us calling out the brain's favorite party trick, predicting what's worth it, whether effort, reward, or threat. And we laughed at the idea that insight alone changes behavior. It doesn't. Day 2, we rolled our eyes at friction and old patterns being the bouncers blocking action. And we got cozy with the idea that identity is basically just what you do enough times until you believe it. So here we are, ready to poke at emotions.
All right, let's talk about emotions, but then also we're gonna integrate that within what we talked about in day one and day two. So let's begin day three and integrate that within all that.
Okay, then let's not treat emotions like the enemy here. They're just signals popping up in the same prediction system we've been talking about. Fear, doubt, resistance. They're basically the brain saying, hey, this might not pay off, or I don't think this is safe. So the trick is, how do we tweak those predictions rather than brute force them?
Okay, so now we're viewing, instead of seeing like emotions as the enemy, something to avoid, we're trying to see what the actual emotion is trying to get us to do, or what the emotion is trying to literally actually tell us in that case, instead of just throwing it away as something irrational that we shouldn't listen to.
Exactly. If you think about it, emotions are like those annoying but honest friends. Blunt, sometimes inconvenient, but probably onto something. Fear might be asking, is this actually a threat or just unfamiliar? Doubt might be hinting that you're missing some info. The idea is we take them as input, adjust the prediction, and stop treating them like irrational noise.
Okay, so if we put this in the boxes that we made for day one and day two, what does that look like in those kinds of situations?
Alright, so day 1 was the brain predicting effort, reward, or threat. Emotions are just that, but from the inside. Fear says, hey, this might not pay off, avoid. Day 2 was friction and identity. Emotions are that friction, but not to be shoved aside. Instead, we notice them, tweak what they're predicting, and over time, that's how identity shifts. In short, emotions are just part of the prediction identity dance.
So how do we actually work with the emotions? How do we actually understand the emotions in a way that it doesn't bother us? Because a lot of the times we tend to have the emotions, but we don't tend to see the emotions as a signal, like you were saying. We tend to just see it as something that's bothering us, that's basically not allowing us to get us from point A to point B. Because we were doing already, we acknowledge the fact that we get a lot of insights, but we still tend to we don't tend to act upon those insights. So within us talking about emotions here, how do we get from seeing emotions as just a hindrance to moving the emotions into a different frame where we get to utilize these emotions and actually work with them so that we can move from insight to action more actively?
Well, first, you stop wrestling them like they're some obstacle course. When an emotion pops up, you ask, what prediction is this making? If fear's shouting, maybe it's predicting disaster. If doubt's whispering, maybe it's predicting failure. You engage it like a skeptical debate. Is that prediction actually accurate? Then you run small experiments. Tiny actions that feed new data back into that prediction system. Do it enough, and emotions start aligning with reality instead of imaginary catastrophes. Basically, you stop waiting for emotions to vanish and start retraining them by acting anyway. One small step at a time.
Okay, so we start engaging with the emotions in a different manner instead of just having the emotions control the behavior that we have, because sometimes like anger, for example, could turn into just a complete avoidance of the action so that you don't have to feel the anger. But here we want to move the emotions correctly. So we question the emotion, be like, what is it telling me? And then we utilize what it's telling me to see how we can get the emotion to a different emotion, or are we trying to work with the emotion as it is and do something with it?
You don't need to flick the emotion into something else. That's just emotional whack-a-mole. You work with it exactly as it is. If anger's there, you go, all right, what's this anger protecting me from? Once you've got the message, the trick isn't to erase it or transform it into rainbows, you just let it inform you while you still act. The emotion might stick around for a bit, but you're retraining your system's predictions as you go. Eventually, the emotions catch up with the new reality, not the old one.
Okay, so let's go through a full example from the stuff that we went in from day 1 and day 2, and then we add the emotional layer, but give a really articulate example that could really put this together in a way that would fully make sense.
Alright, let's say you want to start a new creative project, maybe writing lyrics. Day 1, your brain predicts it's going to be a slog. Effort might outweigh the reward, so you avoid starting. Day 2, you realize your identity isn't someone who creates regularly. Now, here comes the emotional layer. You sit down and doubt creeps in. What if it sucks? That's your prediction system saying failure is coming. Instead of fighting it, you hear it out. Then you write one line, just one. You're feeding the system new data. Hey, I survived that. You don't wait to feel confident first. You act, and the emotion adjusts over time. Eventually, after enough lines, the system predicts, I can do this, and your identity shifts to, I create even if doubt's in the room.
Okay, so we acknowledge the emotion and we do the thing that we wanted to do anyways, correct?
Exactly. You nod at the emotion, say got it, and then you take the step anyway. The emotion doesn't have to leave the room for you to move. Eventually it learns, oh, we can handle this, and it quiets down.
Okay, so before I've heard about the way that I got into viewing emotions and all that, because I came from, first, obviously, it feels like your emotions are controlling you, but then you want to control your emotions. And then I learned that what you really want to do is just not have the emotions have control over you, because controlling an emotion is kind of a thing that you can't necessarily do, but you can go about it by now allowing the emotion to control you in that manner.
Yeah, it's not about dominating emotions like some emotional dictator. It's more like being a decent host. Emotions can show up, but they don't get to drive. You give them a seat, you hear them out, and then you decide what you'll do. It's like being the director of the movie instead of the actor improvising on every emotion's whim. So yeah, no control battles, just a firm hand on the steering wheel.
If you could elaborate on each emotion, like what each emotion is telling us, like in every situation, because we have a whole situation of emotions that go in us, not just negative, we have positive emotions as well. So if you could go over maybe every single emotion to see what the signal is within that emotion that it's trying to tell us, and how to actually navigate the emotion, or have a particular frame that allows you to have a healthy relationship with the emotions instead of an avoiding or an escape situation where you feel the emotion and then you don't want to deal with it. Could you please go over each emotion so we can articulate what we mean here by signals within each emotion, and see how that goes right now?
I'll give you a handful, not every emotion, because I like us both to stay awake. Fear's a classic, it's predicting danger even if it's wrong. Anger, it's telling you something feels violated, boundaries, fairness, you name it. Sadness signals loss or unmet needs. Flip to the positives, joy is signaling something went right, connectedness signals you're safe with others. The pattern is simple. Each emotion points to a prediction. You don't fight it, you ask what it's trying to highlight, then you decide the action, not the emotion. That's the healthy dance.
So while we're making the actions, the emotions are not driving us. So I understand that aspect. But we're still in the situation where we could be having the insight of the things that we wanted to do, but maybe the emotion is particularly strong, like fear, for example, or sadness, or whatever negative emotion you might have. Is there a particular way to change the emotion to a positive emotion, or the positive version of that negative emotion, that could lead us to actually engaging with the actions that we want to do and actually get what we want to do done? So let's say, I know you already gave the example of talking of pursuing something creatively and then try to move along that, oh, this feels like it might not be worth it, oh, my lyrics might suck, or whatever, my art might suck, or all that. And then you try to move from there to just tell the emotion, look, I just basically did this. It was a pretty good one. So you're basically just calibrating the emotion so that the emotion gets acknowledged, because if not, it's just gonna keep reappearing every time that you're not giving it a new information. And then you somehow walk the emotion to be less of a hindrance. Of course, you don't want to get rid of the emotions. The emotions are there for a reason. And then you acknowledge the emotions there. So there has to be some kind of mechanism that we're creating here. Maybe distance, maybe a layer before the emotion that allows us not to be reactive to the emotion in that manner. So what's going on here?
You're basically talking about creating space between you and the emotion. Let's call it a gap. That gap is where you notice the emotion without letting it hijack your next move. You don't have to morph fear into joy. You just notice fear, step back mentally, and decide, okay, fear's here, but I can still take a small step. The mechanism is simple. Awareness first, then action, not reaction. With practice, that space gets wider, and the emotion doesn't vanish. It just doesn't boss you around.
Okay, so when we have people that have more of a reactionary, where people just tend to react to their emotions more often than not, and then we have the same, another person that doesn't tend to do that. What might have happened within them that one is more of a reactive person and one is more of a looks at the emotion and acknowledges it without having to react to that emotion in that manner? What's going on between both people there?
Well, it's not magic, it's just reps. The reactive one probably never built that muscle. Early patterns, no space, emotion hits, action follows. The other one? They've likely practiced that pause, maybe intentionally or just by life experience. They've got a tiny habit of noticing first before doing anything. So what's going on? The difference is just practice. One learned to ride that wave, the other gets knocked over. But either can learn it.
So what does that practice that you're talking about look like, so that we can actually have some practical aspects to the things that we're talking about? Because some people are in the reaction state, and they have that insight that they realize that they're reaction based, and they want to move to being more reactive, to moving to actually not allowing the emotion to control them. What does that look like, from moving from reactive to awareness first and then taking action even after the emotion told you whatever it told you?
It's pretty unglamorous, honestly. You start by catching just one reaction, maybe after it's already happened. You reflect, what did I feel? What did I do? Then next time, you aim to catch it sooner. You pause for a beat when the emotion hits. That's it, just one breath. Over time, you train that pause until it's second nature. It's not a grand ritual, just a consistent, tiny interruption. Eventually, you've built that gap where you notice before you act. It's boring, but it works.
So here we're basically we're like adding like a module into our psychology or our mind, where there was no gap between our actions and our emotions, and then we're somehow inputting something in between them so that you can actually look at the emotion without becoming the emotion, right?
Exactly. It's like inserting a tiny mental buffer zone. Instead of being emotion then action on autopilot, you wedge a notice step in there. So you see the emotion without fusing with it. It's like the difference between hearing a song and getting up to dance immediately. You can hear it, but you get to choose if you move. That's the upgrade.
My guess is that conceptually there's already words for this in psychology, correct?
Oh, absolutely. You've got terms like emotional regulation or even cognitive distancing. Fancy labels for that same pause. Mindfulness too, if you want the buzzword. In the end, it's just giving yourself a beat before you react. Psychology just loves naming what we're already figuring out.
Well, makes sense, yeah, because we already have these things happening regardless whether psychology has created a word for it or not. But I've also heard about having the mind does what the mind does, right? So it's creating these things inside, it's creating these narratives that might actually not be absolutely true, like to what reality is. And it creates a narrative that might make you feel a particular manner in ways that don't allow you to pursue what you want to pursue. So how do we frame our own mind so that we could actually get ourselves in a position where we don't allow the mind to completely take control in that way, where we can just still have the narrative and work with it a little bit and then start tweaking it little by little? Is it more of an awareness thing, or is it more of an action thing, or is it more of a understanding ourselves and how we work situation? What do you think here?
It's a bit of all three, but awareness is where the whole thing kicks off. You spot the narrative, maybe it's telling you you'll fail, and instead of accepting it as the absolute truth, you treat it like a hypothesis. Then action is the test. You take a small step anyway. That gives you real data, which eventually tweaks the narrative. Understanding yourself? That's the long game. But you don't wait for perfect clarity. You act while the mind's still rewriting the script. That's how you stop the mind from running the entire show.
So we basically gotta get ourselves to act towards the things that we want to do, regardless of what the mind might actually say, by looking at the reality of things and not coming up to particular conclusions that could be or should be real, more looking at what is real in that case.
Bingo. Instead of buying into the mind's what-if predictions, you do a little reality check. What's actually happening right now? You take a step, you gather real feedback, and you adjust. The mind will still spin stories, but you don't have to live inside them. You anchor yourself to what's actually unfolding. And that's a much better compass for action.
So understanding this basically gets you already halfway point to being aware of what's actually going on in the mind, and knowing that you don't necessarily have to take what's going on in the mind serious. It's just another tool or thing that is happening that is just giving context to the whole situation. It doesn't necessarily mean that what's going on in the mind is necessarily the real aspect, even though it might feel real. But you gotta acknowledge that the mind is telling you those things maybe for a reason sometimes.
Yeah, the mind's basically trying to be helpful, even when it's a little dramatic. It's throwing out possibilities to protect you, even if they're off base. So you acknowledge the mind's little alerts, like "thanks, Braid, noted," but you don't treat them as commandments. You listen, you nod, and then you go check what's real. That way the mind's part of the conversation, but it's not the boss.
Okay, from here, what else do we gotta know? Like, we already did day 1, day 2, day 3 with the emotions and signals. What would we do in day 4 to get a more understanding of what our minds are doing and our behavior, to understand ourselves a little more?
Day 4, you'd probably want to dig into patterns. What's the mind repeatedly predicting? What behaviors show up on autopilot? If emotions were signals, patterns are old stories on repeat. So day 4 is spotting those loops. You'd notice where you keep reacting the same way. Once you catch those loops, you start rewriting them, one small interruption at a time. That's where you break old habits and build new ones.
Okay, sounds good. We might go over that, or I might come up with another topic to go over, but for now, we'll stop here and we'll just think about what we went over today.
All right, sounds like a plan. We'll let it simmer for now. When you're ready, we'll dive back in. Take care.